On this episode of the Leverage Podcast, we have one of the world's top 100 most influential people in health and fitness, Ben Greenfield. Ben is going to tell us how to be the best you, including interesting tips like how to choose the right supplements, improve your diet, which treadmill to pick, how to increase your stamina, and more information about intermittent fasting. Welcome back to the Leverage Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Sonnenberg, and today we have a very special guest, Ben Greenfield. He is one of the world's top most influential people in the health and fitness space, a New York Times bestselling author of the book Beyond Fitness, CEO of Kion, getkion.com, a high-end supplement and gear company. He's got one of the top blogs and podcasts in the health and fitness space. And one thing that I really respect about Ben is he doesn't just he really walks the talk, and he's super, super fit. There's a lot of people in the space that you look at them and you're like, well, why would I take advice from you on health and fitness? I mean, Ben is in super good shape, ripped on reality TV shows, professional obstacle course, participant. So just really excited to have a conversation and learn from you today. So thanks for joining me, Ben.
Cool, dude. Thanks for your kind words.
No, and there's a few things that we actually have in common after reading your bio I didn't realize about you. I was also a water polo player. I wasn't whole set. I was a sprinter.
Oh, no kidding.
I also graduated college at a young age, coming top of the class. And I'm also a chess player. So
nice. And by the fact that you're an ex-water polo player, that means that's the equivalent, I found out later, to being crappy swimmer. I learned to swim largely by playing water polo and training for lifeguarding, and it kind of turned me into like a thrasher in the water, which wound up serving me well in like open water swimming in triathlon where you're fighting the waves and stuff. But I didn't realize this when I was competing in water polo. Like swimmers kind of laugh at polos, like water polo players, like we can't swim.
Yeah.
At least we can't swim beautifully.
Is that why you do well in triathlons? Because you know all the dirty water polo tricks, and you know like the grabbing of the ankle trick where you just like pull them back?
Yeah. I mean, I race ethically, but yeah, it does kind of help when shit goes south in the water for sure.
And then regarding chess, are you still playing chess at all?
I play with my twin boys sometimes, but not that much. No, I used to be like hardcore to chess and read all the chess books and worked on a lot of my openings. And actually, I really, really got into chess from playing battle chess, that computer game battle chess, where every chess move that you make, there's an actual battle on the screen. Like the knight will attack the queen and like dismember her limbs with his sword, or like when the pawns fight, they'll use like magic powers against each other. Yeah, I don't even know if they make that game anymore, but it was called Battle Chess, and that's what actually got me hooked on chess when I was a kid.
I've never even heard of that. I should check that out. Next time you're in New York, let me know and I'll take you. I played chess at Washington Square Park. Have you ever been to that park where the Hustlers play?
I've been to the park. I haven't played over there though.
It's really fun because aside from having a nice game in the open air, you learn some crazy phrases and have to properly shit talk with people. So it's really educational.
Sounds like a good way to get schooled.
Yeah. So how did you have you always been a sporty person? I read in your bio that you were homeschooled, which kind of makes it even like more impressive because like you weren't at a high school with teams and stuff. So were you just always sporty growing up and then just belonging to club sports teams throughout high school?
Well, homeschooling's weird. I've actually had to delve back into this quite a bit because I just gave my kids the option of dropping out of school, and they're in 5th grade, and they took me up on it. So I've had to kind of return to all the homeschooling and the unschooling laws here in the state of Washington now. And I grew up in Idaho, and in Idaho, homeschoolers were allowed to play at the public schools, like play sports at the public schools. So in junior high and high school, I played basketball, tennis, and soccer. And up until that point, my parents had me in like t-ball and baseball, and I played a lot of basketball growing up. I wasn't that sporty though. I wasn't that good. I was more kind of into like chess and watercolor painting, violin, the symphony. I did a lot of like fantasy fiction writing, and also was a voracious consumer of, J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, and Arthur Conan Doyle, and spent a lot of time at the library. But yeah, I dabbled in sports. I didn't get super into like actual human physiology and biomechanics and strength conditioning and a lot of the stuff that I'm still into now, until I really got hardcore into tennis. Like I really kind of rose through the ranks in tennis and became one of the top junior players in the Northwest, and played high school and wound up playing college tennis. But it was really tennis that got me kind of hardcore into like the fitness and physical culture scene.
Gotcha. Do you still play, or just recreationally, I guess?
Recreationally, again, mostly with the family. It seems these days like pretty much any sport I play with my family. Like we play driveway basketball, 2-on-2, mom and me and the boys. We play, family tennis on Sundays. We throw the football around. We go to like obstacle course races and Spartan races together. We go to bow hunting competitions together. I just, for me as a busy CEO and still running a couple companies and stretched pretty thin for time, it's like when I have a chance to play sports, I just kind of double up and do it with my family. And I really, really like that. I like playing with my family more than I like, going out and bumping elbows at noon ball with the fellas.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So regarding fitness, do you have, like, what are some principles that you could suggest to people that everyone could, obviously, I guess alcohol is universally bad. Sugar, I guess is universally bad. What are some other
universally bad, but we can.
Maybe I'm saying things incorrectly. So what are some things that you could suggest to people that in terms of fitness and health and supplements that everyone should kind of, no matter what, do? And then also, what are some of your philosophies that might differ from some of the other well-known people in your space?
That's a pretty involved two-part question, so I'll address the first. When it comes to universally applying dietary principles or fitness or supplementation principles, the fact that we live in an era in which self-quantification is so simple, whether it's paying less than $100 for a salivary genetic test that's sent to your house, or whether it be like wearing a ring or a wristband that quantifies your exact nervous system response to a training session, or your exact calorie burn or heart rate response to training, or even getting blood work, that shows exactly which supplements you should or should not be taking, like whether or not vitamin D for you is a good idea because you're low, or perhaps you have the genetic predisposition to not be able to generate it in your own body in response to sunlight, or whether you be that person who would develop some pretty significant vitamin D toxicity from taking what the average multivitamin might have, dictates that I really, really feel that the best response to the question is there is no perfect supplements that everybody should universally be taking, because you really need to self-quantify. And that being said, you can look at two things. You can look at, for example, supplements that have been heavily researched, been shown to be highly beneficial in a variety of scenarios and relatively safe for most people. Probably the two at the top of that list would be A, fish oil, and B, creatine. Both have cognitive benefits, both have joint benefits, performance benefits, longevity benefits. And, just by taking 2 to 4 grams of fish oil a day and around 5 grams of creatine a day, just year round, you're pretty safe. They're pretty healthy. They're pretty proven. Yeah, there are tons of other supplements we could get into. There are literally hundreds of them, but I'm a fan of taking everything on a case-by-case basis in a scenario like that. The same thing could be said for dietary principles, right? So when we look at like the blue zones where people are living a disproportionately long period of time, some of them are eating higher amounts of fat. Some of them are, like the Maasai hunter-gatherer tribe, almost more carnivore, like milk and blood with meat and small amounts of seeds and nuts and berries and tubers, or the Okinawans who are eating like 85% carbohydrates and with rice and fish, or, like a Loma Linda population that's largely vegan. And so, you can't necessarily say even any one of those single diets from a macronutrient ratio is like the perfect human diet. but you can look at overarching principles that seem to be consistent amongst all of them. All of them have a habit of fasting, either religiously or on a frequent basis, whether that's a 12 to 16-hour intermittent fast, or a weekly or monthly 24-hour fast, or a period of religious fasting for several days, every quarter or longer period of time every year. They all have a habit of eating in a very kind of more ceremonial way than we tend to in a Western culture, meaning with family, building relationships, laughing and gathering around the dinner table, and eating in a very kind of rest and digest, relaxed, what we call like a parasympathetic nervous system type of state, which allows you to get fuller faster and digest your food more completely and enjoy and savor the food more. We know most of them have a wide variety of wild plants in their diet, herbs and spices and things that are picked from nature, from the field, that aren't the same as the big, beautiful, high sugar produce that we get from the grocery store, but, rather things like, wild nettle and mint and rosemary and thyme and cilantro and these bitter and tannic herbs and teas and coffees and even alcohol. Which leads to another thing many of them do, which is like one drink of alcohol every day. And the men average actually closer to around 2 drinks, the women around 1 drink. But these are all like, organic alcohols or, alcohols rich in bitters and digestifs. We're not talking about, margarita mixes or beer, but typically like a nice organic glass of red wine, or bitters served with lemon juice or lime juice and maybe a bit of gin. And so we see fasting, we see wild plant intake, we see eating as a group, we see small amounts of alcohol intake. You also see typically the carbohydrates most of these populations eat. They're kind of low glycemic index. They're slow release carbohydrates like legumes, or like slow fermented sourdough bread, or tubers like purple potatoes or yams or sweet potatoes, and not really a lot of like Wonder Bread and energy bars and starchy processed or packaged carbohydrates. And so those are the type of things that we could look to, whether we're going to eat whatever, a carnivore diet or a keto diet or a vegan diet or whatever diet winds up being most appropriate to us based on that self-quantification I was talking about. We can weave those overarching dietary principles into our program, like fasting, a little bit of healthy alcohol intake, low amounts of slow release carbohydrates, or slow release carbohydrates, not necessarily low amounts of them, eating as a group and things along those lines. So that would kind of sort of be my general response to your first question. From a fitness standpoint, we can also be advised certainly by what we see people who are living a disproportionately long period of time doing. Most of them aren't spending time in a CrossFit box or even at a health club or a gym, right? They're engaged in low-level physical activity during the day, usually outdoors, occasionally lifting heavy things, building a fence, hauling rocks, carrying hay or alfalfa to the livestock, and working in manual labor outdoors with occasional sprints, during a pickup soccer game or a tennis game, or, from an ancestral standpoint, like chasing a prey while hunting, or running from a lion or an attacking animal, or, very brief spurts of high intensity activity. And that's a little bit more tricky for those of us living in a post-industrial era, because many of us are relegated to, either sitting or standing at a desk, or, sitting in a car or truck or bus or an airplane. And so you can, to a certain extent, simulate that in your life. Like I'm walking on a treadmill while I'm talking to you, and I might on any given day during podcasts, consults, even using like dictation software while working on emails, et cetera, walk 4 to 6 miles in any given day. I have, like a deadlifting bar in my basement, and I'll go down there and just like pick it up a few times during the day just to get like that heavy lifting type of stimulus. I have a kettlebell on the floor of my office, and I'll stop occasionally and do like kettlebell swings, like 30 kettlebell swings or 30 burpees or 100 jumping jacks to kind of get that high intensity burst, so that by the end of the day, like a formal gym session is not a necessity. it's kind of an option. And sure, if you're an athlete, and that's really the way that gyms have traditionally been used in human culture up till 100 years ago. Gyms they were relegated to the realm of the athletes or the gladiators or the warriors or people who didn't necessarily live a long time, but had to like train for their career. And sure, if you want to go do a Spartan race or like a triathlon or a CrossFit competition or a bodybuilding or fitness show or something like that, you are going to need to hit the gym, but don't fool yourself into thinking that's necessary for healthy, sustainable levels of fitness. Now, I know that you're kind of into, I guess, like outsourcing, automation, time management, et cetera. And if you'd like, I could kind of dictate what I think would be, assuming that you have low level amounts of physical activity in your life and you're making it a point, as I just outlined, to stay physically active during the day, what kind of like a minimalist exercise program would be based on what we know from exercise science. If that would be helpful, we could delve into that.
Yeah, would love to. Anything about efficiency. So like what is kind of that baseline? And also just back to your treadmill that you're on right now, is there a special type of treadmill like that you like for having a walking desk?
Yeah, so there are companies like Woodway, for example, that make walking treadmills for standing workstations, but I don't like a lot of them for two reasons. A, many of the treadmills designed for standing workstations are slow. They can only go 3 to 4 miles an hour. Sometimes I like to walk more quickly than that. I mean, heck, sometimes I like to just do a sprint on my standing workstation treadmill, right? Because that's super simple. You can just like, as you're walking, stop and sprint for 30 seconds. So because of that, I use a manual treadmill that's actually designed for fitness, but that I've got just in front of my standing workstation. I use one called a Trueform treadmill. It's one of those treadmills that's curved, and so it almost forces you into proper biomechanics while you're walking or while you're running. It's a little spendier. I had the folks at Trueform just send me a modified version with the whole front dashboard removed, so I could just shove it up in front of my standing workstation. But that's what I use. I also like it because it's manual, and I'm very much into, like, I don't use a lot of Wi-Fi, a lot of Bluetooth. I've got like the dirty electricity filters all over my home. Yeah. I keep my cell phone in airplane mode whenever it's on my body. Like I kind of, that might be a discussion for another day, or you could go read a book like the Tinfoil Hat Guide to EMF to learn about a lot of the big problems that high amounts of 5G or Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or just electricity in general, the negative impact that can have on cognitive function and the cell membranes and some other issues. So I like also that, since a treadmill is one of the biggest dirty electricity churner outers that exists, of having a manual treadmill. I think it's just a better choice for clarity and for avoiding the kind of brain fog I think can come with constant exposure to electrical signals. So I like that. So I would say like a manual treadmill that you could exercise on, like a Trueform or something like that, works pretty well. In terms of the exercise component, I like to think about it in this way. You want to maintain your muscular strength. You want to maintain also the explosiveness of the muscle, which is actually more correlated with longevity and decreased risk of injury and overall physical function than just like muscle strength is, right? The explosiveness of the muscle, its ability to produce a high amount of force over a short period of time. So you have those two parameters, right? Your muscle strength and your muscle power. But then also a few other things you want to target in an exercise program. If there were going to be like a bunch of things you could check off the list, would be A, the density of your mitochondria, because that's also associated with longevity, with physical function, with sleep, with a variety of health parameters. So the density of your mitochondria, the muscular endurance, which is basically translated as your muscle's ability to be able to buffer lactic acid, which is like the acid that builds up as you exercise. That's another kind of fitness component you want to be able to tick off. Also, you want to be able to have your Vo2 Max targeted. That's your maximum oxygen utilization, also correlated with longevity, also highly important for physical performance. And then finally, you would have your stamina, right? Your ability to just be able to burn fat for long periods of time and go for long periods of time, have endurance. And then just your general mobility, right? Your ability to be able to move. So we could take all those things, your muscle strength, your muscle power, your mitochondria, your muscle and your ability to be able to buffer lactic acid, your Vo2 max, your stamina, and your mobility. And the question then becomes, okay, how could I hit all of those and weave that into like a weekly perfect program for fitness? And that might seem complex, but it's not that complex. So for example, let's give an example for each of those. For muscle strength, all you need is about 12 to 18 minutes doing one single set to failure 1 to 2 times a week to maintain muscle strength and muscle mass. There's a book called Body by Science by Dr. Doug McGuff that outlines a program in which you go to the gym or you go to your basement or wherever you happen to have your weights, and you just do one single 2 to 3 minute set to failure for a few choice multi-joint moves, specifically in that case, a chest press, a shoulder press, a row, a pull, like a pull down or a pull up, and then some version of a leg press or a squat, right? One single set to failure, done super slow. It's hard, but it's over in 12 to 18 minutes. So, within 25 to a little over 30 minutes a week, you've got your strength targeted. For the power, you can just do body weight training, very explosive, and you can basically use something like, the New York Times published that article a few years ago called the 7-minute workout. I have a lot of my clients do that to hit the muscle power, right? So they're doing that quick 12 to 18 minute strength set 1 to 2 times a week. And then they're doing something like the New York Times 7-minute workout. And sometimes I'll have them go through the 7-minute workout if they have extra time, like 2 or 3 rounds of that. And you just do a bunch of body weight exercises like lunge jumps and push-ups and squats and stuff like that, just as fast as you can go. And that particular program is 30 seconds on, 10 seconds off, and you just do one set of each exercise as fast and explosively as you can. And even something as simple as that hits the muscle power and the muscle explosiveness component. And then you could look at, like I mentioned, the lactic acid component, the ability of the body to be able to buffer lactic acid. And there's a form of training called Tabata style training. It was named after a Japanese researcher who found that lactic acid tolerance could easily be maintained with just 3 4-minute sets a week. And he calls them Tabata sets, where you just do 20 seconds as hard as you can with 10 seconds very easy or completely recovering for a total of 8 rounds, which comes out to about 4 minutes. So this would be like you hop on a bicycle, 20 seconds as hard as you can go, 10 seconds easy or even not pedaling, 20 seconds as hard as you can go, balls out, and then back to 10 seconds easy. And that's very simple to work in 3 times a week. You could even use that as a warm-up or a finisher for any of those strength workouts that I just described. So there's no reason you can't stack some of these things all in a row.
Yeah, it was a finisher to my workout this morning.
Yeah, exactly. And then for the mitochondria, all you need is about 4 to 6 30-second efforts with very long recovery periods in between each of them. So let's say you're doing that strength set on a Monday and a Friday, and you're doing something like the New York Times 7-minute workout on a Wednesday and a Saturday. And before a few of those workouts or after a few of those workouts, you're doing a Tabata set. Well, maybe on a Tuesday and a Thursday, you're going to get on the bike, treadmill, rowing machine, whatever, and you just do 30 seconds as hard as you can go, 4 minutes easy, complete recovery, right? 4 to 6 times through. And that's it. That's like your high intensity interval set that you might do a couple of times a week, even though research shows that really you only need to do that about once a week to maintain mitochondria. So let's say you're just going to do that on a Tuesday. And then on Thursday, you could hit your Vo2 Max. And the way the Vo2 Max works is it's kind of similar to that mitochondria 30 seconds on, 4 to 6 minutes off that I just described, except Vo2 Max is longer. It's 4 to 6 minutes hard, 4 to 6 minutes easy for about 4 to 6 rounds. That's probably the hardest of the workouts that I'm describing to you right now. Like, it's hard to get your maximum oxygen utilization up, but that's like a hardcore session you could buckle down and do on a Thursday. You're done within 25 to 30 minutes. But again, it's 4 to 6 rounds of 4 minutes hard or 4 to 6 minutes hard, 4 to 6 minutes completely easy. And that's something you could do again on a bike, treadmill, rowing machine, elliptical trainer, whatever. And then the only other components that will be left over would be those 2 that I named, your stamina and your mobility. And for stamina, I like the idea, again, so that you maximize fat burning, of just getting up in the morning on a Saturday or Sunday and going to the park or just heading out in your neighborhood and doing a 1 to 2 hour hike or walk or bike ride or anything that's just like low level aerobic endurance.
Mm-hmm.
And preferably in a fasted state so that you're really teaching your body how to maximize fatty acid utilization as you do it. And then finally, for mobility, I'm a big morning routine guy, and I just get up in the morning, and during the 10 to 15 minutes because I do French press coffee, so during the 10 to 15 minutes that the water is boiling and the coffee is steeping, I just choose any number of stretches or foam rolling moves or anything that just targets any muscles that seem like they need a little bit of extra attendance or anything that's kind of tight or sore. And I just use that 10 to 15 minutes every morning to work on my mobility just to kind of jumpstart the day. And when you put all those together, right, your strength, your muscle power, your lactic acid tolerance, your mitochondrial biogenesis, your Vo2 Max, your stamina, and your mobility, I've found that you can stay really fit and hit everything with the equivalent, once you add that all up, of about 35 to 40 minutes a day. And especially if you're also just engaged in low-level physical activity during the day, you got a treadmill workstation, you're stopping every once in a while to do some jumping jacks or some burpees or some kettlebell swings or whatever the case may be, you can stay really fit with that kind of protocol.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. I've been lately, and I live in New York, and I go to a place called Mushin Mixed Martial Arts, and they started doing a class there called Eldoa. Have you ever heard of that? It's a
Yeah, Eldoa is amazing. It's basically a form of deep self-inflicted fascial stretching. I had an Eldoa instructor come to my house a few years ago. I interviewed him on my podcast. We did a very interesting discussion. If you go to my website at bengreenfieldfitness.com and just search for ELDOA, you could listen in. And I'm a big kind of 80-20 guy. I like to use the 20% of the moves that give me 80% of the results. And even after that whole weekend of training with him, I left with just basically, 3 really good Eldoa stretches that I'll include sometimes with that morning mobility that I just talked about. And yeah, Eldoa, you're just holding these stretches in a very intense position for like 1 minute, but it works really, really well, especially if you have, I've found, especially for anybody who has like disc issues or.
Yeah, I have a disc issue, and I find it better than doing physical therapy.
Yeah, it works really well.
Yeah. What are some things for the house that people can buy? So you mentioned something about dirty electricity. Are there some switches that you could buy, or I know that for routers, there's like cases that you can put things in. Are there any quick things that people could just not spend a ton of money on that you would suggest? I've known some people to buy water filters for their showers, for instance. I know like Sprite has Sprite water filters. Are there some that
water filters don't have much to do with the electricity. That's more water.
No, I know. I'm just, as an example, something to buy for the house.
Okay, yeah. So I kind of went off the deep end about this. I even did a bunch of research on it, and I wrote a book, just like a simple little ebook called How to Biohack the Ultimate Healthy Home, where I get into stuff like, which air filters work and how to fix the water and, and even the lighting and also the electricity. And there's a lot that you can do. And I even also had a building biologist. That's actually a thing. A certified building biologist come to my house with all these meters and walk through the house and identify areas that were getting high exposure to cell phone towers or areas, in the bedroom where I could like readjust the bed to be farther away from certain areas that have higher amounts of electricity. And that was really helpful. I wound up kind of redoing a lot of the lighting in my home and moving some furniture around and kind of rearranging some things to make it even healthier. But some of the biggest wins are you can get dirty electricity filters and just put one of those in the outlet of each room of the house. There's a company called Greenwave that makes a good brand. There's a company called Stetzer that makes a good brand. And there's a company called Shielded Healing that makes a good one. So dirty electricity filters are one. Number two is that all the computers just have FireWire to Ethernet or USB to Ethernet adapters. And whenever you want to get on the internet, since I don't have a Wi-Fi router, you just plug straight into the wall, into the Ethernet port in the wall, or you can plug into well, I should say I have a router, but it's not on. So you could plug the Ethernet cable directly into the router as another option. So you're not running Wi-Fi much of the time. You can also get a very affordable digital timer from Amazon and just set that digital timer that your router is plugged into to automatically turn off at, say, 10 p.m. and turn on again at 6 a.m. Right? So at least you're not getting Wi-Fi during the third of the night when you're in bed, when it'd be theoretically most dangerous, because that's when your nervous system is repairing and recovering, and ideally you're not getting bombarded with electricity while you sleep. So those would be a couple things: dirty electricity filters and using Ethernet cables as much as possible. And then finally, I would say another thing that really helps, and this is kind of crosses over into lighting, but it would be kind of get rid as much as you can of like LED lighting, or even like Philips Hue systems or smart lighting systems or anything like that. They tend to kick off a lot of dirty electricity. And really the best way to go if you want the best combination of natural light that's closest to what you'd get if you were in sunlight, along with low amounts of electricity. They're slightly higher on the power utilization, but I mean, I think for most people listening in, like a slight bump in the power bill by $30 or $40 a month probably isn't a big issue. Use incandescent bulbs, like full spectrum incandescent bulbs. So all the cans in the house have full spectrum incandescent, and in the bedroom, just so there's no blue light whatsoever, which really helps with sleep architecture at night, I just get red incandescent bulbs, and those are screwed into the cans in the bedroom. So you've got clear incandescent throughout the house, or the office, and then red incandescent in the bedroom, or say like the master bathroom, so you're not throwing off your sleep architecture when you get up in the night to pee, and you flip the lights on in the bathroom if you need to. So those are just a few of the little things.
Gotcha. No, that's really good, and I'm going to buy your book and read that, because it's something that I geek out on and always looking to improve. For trackers, I just got the Whoop. What do you think of that versus the Oura Ring?
They both give you equivalent data in terms of the quality of the sleep data, or your REM sleep versus deep sleep, or your heart rate variability or whatever. Really the only difference is the form, right? Some people like a wristband, some people like a ring. I wear the Oura Ring, and the reason for that is because I kind of am a side sleeper, and I tuck my hands kind of next to my hips when I'm sleeping on my side. And I find that the kind of the bulky piece that sticks off that Whoop wristband just like rubs against the bone on my hip while I'm sleeping, and I can't get past that. And so that's the only reason that I prefer the ring to the wristband, really, is that, I've experimented with both. I own both. They both give me good data, but I feel like I do better with the ring. I was concerned at first with the ring. It might interfere with like pull-ups and deadlifts and stuff like that, but it doesn't. Admittedly, I had to build up a little bit of a callus for the first month or so I was wearing the ring, but I use the ring. Both options work, though, just depending on your sleeping position. Gotcha.
Well, I want to wrap this up shortly, but can you explain, you have a book that's coming out. Do you want to just quickly talk about what the premise of the book is, and then also where people can find out more information about this? Well, actually, before wrapping up, I want to learn more about your supplement company, because that sounded awesome.
Okay. I'll fill you in on both. Yeah, so I just finished a book that's about 600 pages long, literally just submitted the manuscript. It'll come out in January, and it's like, it's hundreds of pages, just jam packed with all these body and brain biohacks, digestive tips, brain optimizing tips, nootropics, supplements, biohacks, gear. It's even got a big spiritual section where it delves into spiritual disciplines like meditation and fasting and gratitude and, sound healing and quantum physics and energy healing. So it kind of takes a dive into that stuff as well, because I think a lot of that's kind of neglected in physical culture, but it's important. And so it's split into sections of body, mind, and spirit, and it's called Superhuman Rx, like superhuman prescription. And even though it's not out yet, if you go to superhumanrxbook.com, you can get notified when it's released in digital form, in audio form, and in physical form. So that's the big baby I've been working on, and I think it'll help a lot of people, just as like almost like a Bible for optimizing the human machine. And then Keon is where I spend a lot of time, in all my research on formulations, on supplements, on the way that nutrients and chemicals interplay, I use that to create functional foods like bars, like antioxidant enhanced coffees, things like that. And then also really unique supplement formulations for things like joints and recovery, the immune system, liver cleansing, blood sugar management, fat loss, all those type of things. And all the supplements that I create, I put over a Kion, which is my supplements company. And that's at getkion.com. It's spelled KION, getkion.com. So those are a couple of resources for people listening in.
And then also, obviously, your website's bengreenfieldfitness.com. That's where they can find out more on the blog and the podcast, right?
Yeah, exactly. I do one kind of monster 5,000 to 10,000 word article each week on whatever, muscle building or biohacking or stacking your own nootropic supplements or whatever. And then I put out 2 podcasts a week where I hunt down physicians and scientists and authors and just pick their brain for about an hour and a half with some long form podcasting content.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. This was awesome. And I can't wait to read your book and start implementing some of those tricks.
Cool, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Leverage Podcast. Leverage is an on-demand outsourcing platform that helps entrepreneurs scale their business. We have experts that can set up marketing and sales funnels, email marketing, podcasts, social media creation, paid media, and much more. Grow your business overnight with a team of experts you can trust to deliver. Accomplish more. Visit getleverage.com.